Welcome back. My understanding is that you all have reached a verdict. Juror 20, you're the foreperson?
Yes.
All right, I need you to stand, please. Was the verdict that was reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes, it was.
And have you or someone on your behalf completed the verdict form, signed it, and dated it?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you could give it to Deputy Murphy so I can see it, please. Juror 20, I would like you please to publish the verdict, which means read the verdict into the record.
On count 1, murder, we find the defendant not guilty. On count 2, felony murder, we find the defendant guilty of felony murder. On count 3, aggravated assault, we find the defendant guilty. On count 4, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, we find the defendant guilty. On count 5, influencing a witness, we find the defendant guilty.
Thank you, Juror 20. You can take a seat. Deputy Murphy, if you would please give the verdict form to Mr. Rucker and then to Mr. Harvey. Mr. Rucker, do you have any objections, or does the state have any objections to the form of the verdict?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
No, but we'd have to report.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be calling you by your juror number. When I call your number, if you would please stand, I'm going to ask each of you the same few questions. And we're going to go numerically. It's over here. Juror 5. Was the verdict that you heard read in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes, it was.
And is that something you have freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror 7. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict in the jury room? And did you Yes, okay. And did you freely and voluntarily enter into that verdict? Is it still your verdict? Thank you. Juror 10. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict in the jury room?
Yes.
Is that a verdict you freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes.
Does it remain your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror 18. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes.
Did you freely and voluntarily enter into that verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror 20. Was the verdict that you read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes.
Is that something you freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. 36. The verdict read here in court, was that your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes.
And is that a verdict you freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes.
Does it remain your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. 38. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict in the jury room?
Yes.
And did you freely and voluntarily enter into it?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. 57. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes, sir.
And is that a verdict you freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 61. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes.
And did you freely and voluntarily enter into that verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. 63. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you freely and voluntarily enter into that verdict?
Yes.
Does it remain your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. 68. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict back in the jury room?
Yes, sir.
And is that something you freely and voluntarily entered into?
Yes, sir.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 96. Was the verdict read here in court your verdict in the jury room?
Yes.
And did you freely and voluntarily enter into that verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. It should be everyone. Is there anyone I didn't talk to? Okay. Mr. Rucker, is there any reason I should not or cannot release this jury?
There's nothing we have to do.
Okay. Mr. Hardy? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to retire to the jury room in just a moment. What I want to do before that is to thank you for many weeks of conscientious service and several days of conscientious deliberations. I say this on behalf of the state and the defense and the defendant and the people of Fulton County and the people of Georgia. We've been working real hard on an important matter, important to all the folks here in court. And we all appreciate your commitment to our justice system and the way in which we resolve cases. So thank you. I'm going to come back and talk to you. We'll run out of there. We have letters for you all. I'll come back to talk to you in a minute. But I do, because it's not appropriate for the attorneys to address you at this time, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone for your service. Deputy Murphy, you take them back there, please.
All rise for the jury. Please be seated.
Mr. Rucker, my thought is that sentencing hearing at a later date would be appropriate, given what I suspect will be involved with that. Are you prepared to go forward with sentencing now, or would you prefer a later date for sentencing?
Later date.
Okay, same question for the defense. Same answer?
Same answer.
Okay. Mr. McIver, I'm remanding you to the custody of the sheriff. We will get you back here at a date that is mutually agreeable to the state and your side for purposes of sentencing in this matter. Mr. Rucker, is there anything else we need to take up on behalf of the state until sentencing?
Nothing. I would ask you, though, Judge, if you would inquire with the jurors if they would be willing to speak with the attorneys before they leave.
I will do that, and I'll make sure that word gets to you all so you're not waiting. If they won't come out through this way, I'll give them a chance to leave quietly and unaccosted by folks who might want to talk with them. But I'll certainly share that to attorneys from both sides may want to, and they're free to, but not required to, of course. Mr. Harvey, Mr. Samuel, anything else before we break for the day?
No.
Okay. Well, I thank the jurors for their time. I think it's equally important to thank the attorneys and investigators for both sides for working hard and conscientiously on this case as well. It was complicated. It was drawn out. It was important. A life was lost and a life is at stake as a result of the charges. And I appreciate everyone's professionalism and dedication to bringing this matter forward. What I'm going to invite the state and the defense to do is to coordinate with Ms. Nelson on a date and time that makes sense for a sentencing hearing. If there are any disputes over that, she'll let me know and I'll mediate them, but otherwise, hopefully you all can agree on a date and time when we can get back together for sentencing. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.